Welcome to the Spanish Military Hospital Museum. Behind me is an exact reconstruction of Hospital East that stood here during the Second Spanish period, which runs 1784 through 1821. Across the street would have been Hospital West of the military complex. Sadly, that burned to the ground in 1811. Our Hospital East was reconstructed in 1964. This was a hospital for military men run by military men. Women were not allowed in this hospital as caregivers. If you were in the military in 1790, you wanted to be in the military of Spain. That's because the Spanish took care of their men. The men who stayed in the Spanish military hospital had, on an average, a 70% survival rate. That means 10 soldiers went in, 7 came out alive. In a British military hospital, the survival rate was 30%. 10 soldiers went in, only 3 came out alive. So why was the Spanish survival rate so high? We can thank the Moors. Around 700 AD, the Moors, who came from northern Africa, invaded Spain. As practices of the Islamic faith, the Moors brought with them a cultural tradition of hand-washing and general cleanliness, as well as a vast knowledge of plants and a respect for the sick and dying. The Moors set in place basic practices and rules for physicians and surgeons. They welcomed other cultures into Spain, who in turn brought their knowledge and traditions of healing. By the time the Moors left in 1492, Spain was more advanced in medical care and knowledge compared to other European countries. When this hospital came into being in 1784, many rules and regulations were already set in place by Spain regarding the care of military sick. These policies and procedures were carefully followed, and thus the high survival rate. Welcome to the ward room. In this room, the culmination of the assimilated knowledge of many cultures really shines. We can see the Royal Spanish military regulations for hospital care firsthand. Every patient has his own bed, his own commode, which is just another way of saying toilet. Those commodes were emptied and cleaned after every use, then filled with lavender, a natural antiseptic to refresh the air. Every patient had his own cup, spoon, and plate. He also had his own candle, so he was never left in the dark. Royal regulations also stated that physicians and surgeons must visit a patient twice a day, early in the morning and in the evening. As physicians went from patient to patient, they were required to wash their hands. Patients bathed regularly, and their bed linens were changed and laundered as well. When a patient was discharged, his bed was completely stripped. The bed sack was emptied of the old straw and laundered. It was then restuffed with fresh straw before being placed back on the bed frame for the next patient. In other words, this was a very clean environment. Royal regulations also covered surgeries. All surgeries were performed outdoors because of light. All surgical instruments were washed before and after surgeries. A good Spanish surgeon could remove an arm in 2 minutes and a leg in 3. And keep in mind, all procedures were done without anesthesia. This is the apothecary. It's sort of like what you might call a pharmacy today. But remember, this is a medical facility in a Spanish colonial outpost in 1790. Most supplies were brought by ship. If a ship did not arrive, the apothecary or pharmacist would have to make do with what he could find. Many times, he listened to the native peoples in the area, seeking advice from the knowledgeable elders as to their remedies for ailments passed down and interwoven into their culture. And most times, these remedies worked. Take a close look at these bottles and what's inside of them. In the 1700s, the apothecary used natural ingredients. By now, I hope you're beginning to see how it took many cultures with their own unique knowledge and traditions to bring medical care to the standard that is demonstrated in this museum. The Muslim Moors, the Eastern European Jews, the Spanish Catholics, and finally the Timucuan native peoples were all willing to share their knowledge that ultimately saved the lives of military men in this far-off outpost called St. Augustine.